Singleton here, and this is Honey. She's joined me. Today we're going to be showing you how to make these fantastic stacking coasters from start to finish, aren't we? First time here, thank you for coming. Please click the subscribe button and ring the bell. And if you are a regular visitor, could I first just say thank you for your lovely comments. I've been really enjoying reading them all and answering every single one of them. I do like our conversations. So the first part of today's video will be showing you how to make the clay master to make the mould out of. So you're going to pour silicone over the clay master to make a mould for your resin geodes. And I do have a separate tutorial for how to make silicone moulds, and I'll leave a link for that right on the end screen. If you don't want to see how to make the moulds, if you just want to watch the resin part, please just fast forward to here, and then you can skip all the bit about making moulds. Maybe you're not interested in that. Enjoy! In this video I'm going to be using sharp tools, knives and sharp tools, so please no children doing this first part of the video. It's very dangerous and I don't want any little fingers being chopped off. Okay, so adults only. Thank you. First of all, I'm rolling out my Das air drying modelling clay with a rolling pin which has got guides on, and it's on the thickest setting for a nice consistent shape, thickness. And now I'm cutting out the circles with the old tin, quite a large tin. You can use whatever you like, any cutter you want to the size you want. And I'm separating each piece with greaseproof paper to keep them separate so they don't all stick together. And now I'm carving it at an angle so that my coasters, when they're stacked, it's smaller on the top and it gets bigger as you go down. It just makes it a bit more interesting. The alternative to that is just you don't have to do all this. You could just make a set of coasters all the same size and stack them on top of each other. But the objective here was to have that slope on the edges. So I'm just using whatever tools I found to just refine it each time. And now it's the next day, and it's the clay's firmer now and easier to work with. Also at this point you can take off your greaseproof paper because it won't stick together now. It's still not hard, it's not completely air dried. It does take quite a long time, quite a few days before it's completely solid, but you don't need it to be completely solid to make the mould. Here I'm just putting a piece of wire through to make a hole all the way through, and that is so that I can see exactly the middle of where each hole needs to be. I'm not going to make a hole in the base coaster, just the other ones. Oh, and I forgot to say I actually added 2 more layers after I'd finished filming. I wanted 6 in the end instead of 4. And so I've made 5 coasters with a hole in, and now I'm just smoothing out the hole. Really, it's just repeating the same process with refining, taking it to bits, checking that there's no messy bits, putting it all together, refining it again. Just don't give up with it. Keep smoothing it out until it's all really lovely and smooth on the sides. And here I'm using that wire again because I found it worked quite well for just making those lines on the side. Don't worry at this stage if you can't get it perfect. It is a bit tricky while it's still slightly sticky. It doesn't matter because what you're going to do the next day is sand it down if you need to, and that makes such a difference. So as I just said, it's the next day and it's time to sand it down if you need to. And what I did was I put the lid back in, the lid that I used to cut out the holes to keep it all together while I was sanding it. You can use an electric sander, you can use a Dremel tool, you can use a nail file or just sandpaper. Whatever you have, you can use. You don't need to go out and buy anything especially. When you finish sanding, it should be lovely and smooth like this. And you're ready to start sticking on your gems for texture in the middle. I'm using super glue here and rubber gloves, latex gloves, because super glue and me aren't good friends. And so I'm putting the super glue on, and I'm going to sprinkle on table scatters, which are really cheap and great. I really like them. I've got it just on a laminating sheet here. I use that instead of paper because it doesn't stick to the super glue as easily as paper would. And you don't have to use these table scatters. You could use anything that gives you the right texture, because remember, this is only to make a mould from. It doesn't matter what it looks like, whether it's pretty. You could use anything. You could use lentils even. Anything that's the right texture. And there I'm just folding it over. And what I'm going to do is make sure it's flat on both sides because you don't want any of the gems sticking up from above the level, the top level of the coaster. It needs to be completely within that hole. So what you'll see me do is turn it over now with the laminating sheet, fold it over and smooth it out, and that way I can make sure it's definitely not going to have any bits sticking up. Now you just need to repeat the same process for the other coasters, and you're all done and all ready for making the mould. So if you haven't made a silicone mould before, I'm going to leave a link to this tutorial right at the end of the video, and you can go and see how I would make the silicone mould. And here it is, like magic, my silicone mould the next day. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just sprinkling on some crushed glass into the middle of each geode area. And I've mixed up, I'll label the names of the pigments I've used in the description, and I've mixed up my green, just pouring it on, and I'm putting some darker pigment on the edge there. I wanted the base one to be a bit darker and a bit different. Just using a lollipop stick just to apply the resin. I just found it easier to control rather than pouring it directly from the plastic cup. It's much easier. And now I'm adding some gold. Giving it a blow around. This gets rid of the air bubbles and it moves the resin around nicely. My my air blower isn't too strong, which is good because it doesn't. Sometimes if your blower is too strong, it moves everything about too much and all the colours mix together. So you can see it's progressing now. I'm more happy with the results of some of them than I am with others. I'm just adding some table scatters because I found the crushed glass that I'd used seems to just get lost in the resin and you couldn't really see the texture. So I decided to add some table scatters, and then I'm just adding different things until I'm happy with it here. I quite like to put some, which I've just done, is put some clear resin, and on top of the coloured resin it just pushes everything to the edges and it just gives quite a nice effect. As you can see here, it's now a lot lighter in the middle because I've poured the clear on. I'm just smoothing off all the excess with a lollipop stick, because you don't want anything to be coming up over the edge, because when you're going to have to end up sanding it down so that stack together nicely when you're finished if that happens. So smooth off all the excess resin, and you'll have a much neater finished result. You must make sure that you haven't got any stones or glass or crystals or anything like that sticking out of the top too much. A tiny bit you might get away with it, but if it's too much, they won't stack together properly. So I wasn't really happy with the base coaster, and I thought, oh no, what am I going to do? I don't like it, nothing much is going on there. So I decided to just try out with some alcohol inks. So here I am, just making it up as I go along, dropping inks into it and seeing what happens. And you know, sometimes you get the best results when you've made a mistake and you try to rectify it, and sometimes not, but I think it did turn out better than it was once I'd put some inks on. I put a bit too much gold on there, but it doesn't matter because you can just keep going, blow some off, add something else, just keep experimenting and playing with it. And really that's all the most fun of it, is just learning as you go along and trying out different things. I love to watch the ink here. Look how it goes. I love that. It disappears in there, and then you can blow it round a bit and you can tilt it or whatever you like until you really like the effect that you've got. There it goes again. I could sit and watch that all day. You can see some of those crystals still sticking out there. They did need pushing down at the end. So now it's looking a lot more interesting, and it will look different again when I go back to it. All the magic carries on happening after you've left it, which is another great thing. I've used Ultracast XT for these coasters. That's the resin I've used, and I've used that because it's got much better heat resistance than a lot of the other resins. So if you put in hot coffee cups and what have you on there, it's not going to affect the coaster at all. I really love this resin. It works so well. They're done. Are you ready? There we go. All nicely lined up. I've painted the edges with gold alcohol ink, the same one that I put in the pour. And it's best if you hold them all together and paint downwards with your brush on the ink, with the ink, and it works really well that way, nice and quick. And so let's show you. If you look, you can just see inside on the video, I hope. I really like that effect. Yeah. So let's separate them. There we go. Like a fan. Yeah, so there we go. I really like them. The only thing that I would do differently if I did it again is I would make them a little bit bigger, because this top one really, this will have to be my granddaughter's because she has a small cup. But a normal sized coffee cup, it'll be a little bit of a struggle to get it on. Oh, also I've put some little feet on the bottom just to protect the worktop. Another thing you can do if the bottom is kind of a bit messy, you can sand it down and then spray it with some acrylic varnish, and that really brings it up better. That's what I've done with this one. Oops. There we go. I've just sprayed it with some varnish. And there we go. So if you want to watch the tutorial for how to make the silicone mould, just click this link here. If you enjoyed watching, please click subscribe. If you want to find out exactly when my next video comes out, ring the bell. And don't forget to leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. Did you enjoy it? Did you get inspired. That's the main thing. Did I inspire you? So please let me know, and I'll see you next time. Bye.